Okay, welcome to everyone. I hope that some of you were able to watch the pre-recorded materials. If you weren't, I encourage you to watch it later. I was very fortunate in January of 2020, right before everything locked down, I was able to visit two extraordinary prison programs in India. One in Kolkata with Alokananda Roy, who is here with us today, and one in Mysore in the southern part of India with Hulugappa Kattimani. And he is not able to be with us tonight because it's 1:30 in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning in India. And Mama Roy just arrived back from a fancy evening out. So she is willing and able to join us today, whereas Hulugappa is in the middle of production at his acting school. So, but I want to say just a little bit about his program to give you a sense of it, to encourage you to watch that. He's been doing this program for about 20 years, and like Mama Roy, has become very closely knit with many of the participants while they are incarcerated, after they are incarcerated, and with their families. And he also, both of them do a lot with a variety of arts. And so when he is starting a program, they do yoga, and Mysore is the home of a lot of yoga practices. They do studio arts, so they work with paint and clay, and a lot of resources. We'll talk about how valuable that can be with working with trauma. They work with music, and they work with their performances. Some of them have gone on to be professional artists or professional actors, even though they came in with absolutely no training at all. And because of the way that the system is working there, they make all the sets, all the costumes, do the music, do everything, which I know is sometimes possible in American circumstances and sometimes not. But I do encourage you to listen to him. Both programs are fascinating, and unfortunately, they have only ever met each other over Zoom. So, but at some point in real life, they will join. But I thought to start, it might be helpful for the people here to get a sense, Mama Roy, of just what carceral spaces are like in India, because many people who are here may have been to India, they may not have been to India, but they, in all likelihood, have not been to a jail or a prison in India.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I don't think they can ever visit a jail because foreigners are not allowed inside. So, it's very different from the prisons in the US or any other Western country. I have not been to very many. I've seen one in England, but not anywhere else. But you see, there's a lot of open space in the Indian prisons. See, they move around all day, and they mostly stay in wards together. Only the ones who are extremely naughty are kept in isolated cells. So otherwise, you see, they live like a family. So I remember when I was asked that, what is the difference you saw between a US prison and an Indian prison? I said, normally in the US, they call it the correctional facility. Am I right? They call it it's a facility. They have a lot of facilities, and it all looks very nice and clean and very modern. But in India, the prisons, I mean, they are called correctional homes. So they are a little more homely. They live like families in a ward together. Maybe they're overcrowded, but at least they don't feel that lonely, like they would if they're being locked up in a cell all by themselves. So I think that's what struck me when I first entered, because I've only seen a prison in films where you see these people in a cooped up cell and with a streak of light coming in from somewhere dark and gloomy. So when I first entered, I didn't even look at the people around, because I didn't know a prison could be like this, because there was so much open space and birds chirping, big trees. So I think that helps in a way, because you can at least relate to each other, be with one another, other than being isolated. And yes, it was, and when I saw them, but their body language spoke volumes. They were lethargic. I mean, the body language, because I'm a dancer, I can understand body language. Nothing to look forward to. That's the end of their life. So, and the moment this whole dance workshop started, the body language changed. The way they moved, the way they walked, the way they spoke, everything changed. I mean, they were oozing with confidence, self-confidence, and as though that they have found something to cling on to. They have found some meaning in life, even if they were not free to move out. I think that made a lot of difference. And yes, the prisons there are open. And I know you have the system, we call it the open jail, where they are allowed, the ones who are trusted, who've been there and who are lifers, who cannot, may not be free ever. They may not be released ever. So they are the ones who are in the open prison after a certain number of years, like say 12 or 15 years, where they are let out in the morning at 8 o'clock, and they have to find their own employment, fend for themselves. And when they come back by 8 o'clock, they have to cook their own meals, and they are locked up, but they are free to move around. But it's hard life there too. When during this period, it was pathetic. I mean, all that they went through was worse than the ones who were in the jail, because at least they got food to eat. But with the ones who were in the open jail, they were out of job, and they didn't know how to even find their basic needs of food. They had a shelter, of course, but that's the difference.
One of the things that I was really struck by when I visited Mysore, and I'm wondering how it is with your the people you work with in Kolkata. In Mysore, people were generally known not by their given name, but by their offense or by their case number. And so I visited Mysore Palace with a man who had been released, but we left the jail and he was known as 3 murders. That's what everybody called him. And I know that in the program in Mysore, one of the things that Hulugappa has done is spends a lot of time with getting the people to know each other by their names, by who they are, not just by their offense. And I don't know what it's like in Kolkata.
Yes, India is a vast country, and it has you have visited, so it has all different cultures. In Kolkata, it's different. They are not known by their cases. They are called by their first names, and yes, I know they're not. I don't know. I have never heard. Maybe behind my back, They may, but I don't think that happens. Um, um, if somebody doesn't know somebody's name, the warders, because see, Residency Correctional Home has over 2,000 inmates in one jail. So it's not possible to know everybody by their first name. So that's when maybe the case number or the number they have, sometimes only when they come in are they addressed by their numbers. But with time, they are, yes, no, they're called by their first names usually. And that's not what it's like in Kolkata.
Yeah.
That is sad. If you're known by, yes, they tell me that, he's done this, he's done that. I said, I don't even want to know. To me, they're human beings and they're being punished for whatever they have done. I don't think we have the right to punish them more or judge them anymore. They've been judged and punished. So let us try to just bring them out of that, at least from within. I mean, I can't take them out of the jail, but at least let them feel free within. Because, there's a beautiful song of Tagore which says, there is freedom in the air. There is freedom all around. You only have to look for it. And this is a song I taught them. And I told them that you don't think that when you step out of the prison and when you're released, you're free. You're only free when your spirit is free. So you can be free within the prisons, but that's up to you. You have to work on it and feel free.
And for those who are unfamiliar, Tagore is a very prominent writer from early 20th century in India. He was as far as I know, the first Indian Nobel laureate.
Yes.
And so his work within India is really prominent. And so people would definitely know Tagore. Could you tell the story of how you got involved in the programs that you have now?
The ones, how I got involved initially?
You got involved, yes.
Well, I had no plans. I'll be very honest with you. My life is the most unplanned life in every aspect of the term. I never plan anything. Like the name, the Alokananda is the name of a river. And eventually it merges with the ocean. So I'm like that. I just flow. Whatever comes in the way, I take it. Whatever I leave behind, I don't look back. But I went as a guest on the International Women's Day. And they did a little performance of recitation and music. And we were there giving speeches, the usual thing. And they wanted to learn dance from me. So I readily agreed because I was curious to know about their life, what their life was like inside. But then when I came out and I was being taken around, because you see, these are all heritage prisons. This is where all the freedom fighters were locked up, and some of them were hanged. So this presidency is a heritage prison. So I was being taken around on a sightseeing tour. And that is when I noticed the boys. And I felt that any one of them could have been my child. Because the girls were all dressed up for that day. It was their day, International Women's Day. But the boys were, as I said, walking aimlessly, without any future, without any hope. And I instinctively asked Mr. Sharma, I said, can I, the then IG, the former IG, I said, can I also teach the boys? So he said, won't you feel scared? Because everybody fears them. I said, no, I won't, because they're like my sons. They're my son's age. So I said, all right, go ahead. And that's how it started. Well, the boys, not so much the girls, but the boys thought that I was either crazy or I had an agenda, that there was something that was brewing in me and they didn't know what it was, or I was crazy. Well, crazy I am. I think unless you have that insanity, you cannot create. All creative people are slightly insane. I'm one of them. And you have to think out of the box to be able to create something. And it happened very naturally. So the boys were a little reluctant because they said, there comes a woman and she'll want us to dance like a woman. And they are the machos there. I'm sure there's a hierarchy in the prisons in the US as well, where the bigger the crime, the bigger hero you are within the walls of the prison. They look up to you. If it's a petty crime, oh, it's you're petty. But if you are a murderer, well, you are respected by the others. Within their within themselves. So anyway, I started with martial dance. That's how Chow came up. That's how Kalaripayattu, that is the martial dance of the South. You see, why these dances? These dances were first started by the guards of the kings. So to keep fit, they would do these moves to keep fit. And then it became an art form and a dance form. So, and that's why they're called martial dance. So I started with that, knowing the boys might react to dancing, because even today, not even one of them are dancers. They not one. So while they were doing it, more and more boys started joining in. And I started with folk dances. We have very colorful folk dances in India, where you dance with sticks, with scarves, and with that instrument called ektara by and that is the counterpart of the Sufis, where they talk about the philosophy of life. And all these are folk dances which are extremely colorful and rhythmic. You see, the rhythm they had lost in their life was actually coming back into their bodies and soul. And they felt good from within. And when you feel good, you do good. If you don't feel good, you don't feel like doing anything. But when you feel good, it just spreads. It's very addictive. And you keep generating that energy. And that's what they did. I did nothing. I just touched them and I just showed the way. If they are transformed, it's their credit, not mine. If they didn't go through that process, they wouldn't have. So I think the transformation started with the rhythm. As I keep saying that, we are all born with rhythm in us. That's the heartbeat. So when the heartbeats don't act the way they should, we fall sick. So it's the same thing, the rhythm in life. When you lose the rhythm in life, you are in the dark zone. And when you get back that rhythm, you see light. And that's what happened with them. So that's what dance, rhythm, music, and that they were able to express through their bodies, their mind, their soul. And that was the connect. And they were doing it all together. As I keep saying, that even sports is, that also takes care of their unused youthful energy. But there is still a bit of aggression, a competition, that you have to win and you want to win. But in dance, in theater, you're all working together to reach one common goal. And that is what makes the difference. And, like there, you're doing Shakespeare, something while you are rehearsing, while you're going through that process, you get injected by the whole philosophy, whole feel, and it gets into your blood, it gets into your system, and you start feeling that. And that's why it has worked wonders. It's been magic. With Shakespeare, you all are experiencing that. And with us in India, we do a lot of Tagore's philosophy, like I was talking. So, it's just the language that's different. But the feel is the same. We are all human beings. So I don't think there is any difference. It's one has to just understand what it is, and then they create magic.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we were talking about before everyone came in is the difference that certainly Shakespeare Behind Bars spent a lot of time performing at other prisons, but you and Sankalpa in Mysore both go out and perform publicly. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that, and particularly about not particularly, but include the transportation, because I think that's an important thing that you provide for them.
All right. Now, this when they first came out of the prison to give a public performance in the city auditoriums, there used to be 1-to-1 guard or a policeman with them. Now they go with 5 people at the most. Of course, I mean, the local police, they guard them outside, but with them, there are only 5 guards. And mind you, when they're traveling by train, they have to travel sometimes 2 nights. You've been to Mysore. You know how far that is. They have performed in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Delhi, which is a 2 nights journey. And they're on the train with just 5 guards. Now, the interesting part is the guards sleep. My boys keep a watch. It's role reversal. Now, when they have to go to the washroom, they cannot go on their own. They have to go with a guard. So they wake up the guard and he says, "Sir, will you please take me? Will you come with me? Escort me." So, they have fallen into a discipline which only, something like a group performance or any group theater or dance can instill. It is the discipline that they have gone through, and in the process they are disciplined from within. When we go and perform there, it's in an open auditorium, sometimes in an open space. It has happened many times. And after the performance, the next day, before we leave, maybe the train is in the evening, they're allowed to go shopping. They're allowed to go sightseeing, and they're given, say, 45 minutes to finish all that and come back to the bus. They will not, that 45 minutes will not be 46 minutes. Only once I remember that, they immediately form groups of 5s. So each one keeps a watch on the other. The 5 of them are together so that they come back together. See, I have not taught them this. Nobody has told them, but they do it on their own because they don't want anything to go wrong. They will never, ever put my head down. That if anything goes wrong, it's going to be me who will have to face the music, and they will never do that. So one of those groups of 5 was late. 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and my blood was gradually boiling. I thought once they come back, they'll really get it from me. Then they're never going to get this opportunity again. So I asked them, I said, why are you late? You were supposed to come back at such and such time. Why are you even 7 minutes late? You know what they told me? He says, Ma, we are not allowed, we are not used to crossing roads. And we were scared of the cars coming from both directions. And that's how we got late, because we couldn't cross the road.
I can absolutely
This
understand that. Crossing the streets in India is terrifying. One of the best things they ever did in Calcutta was when they put in more roads going one way.
one way, yes. So you can, and these are things we are so accustomed to, crossing roads, running through the road with cars coming from both sides. We know how to time it. But they are unused. They have been there inside for years. So when they come out, they just feel that all the cars are going to hit them.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
And they get down from the train and they bring water and drinking water and everything. They could easily get lost in the crowd. You know how crowded the stations are. They could easily get lost in the crowd, never to be found. But they will come back.
We've got a couple of questions, but before we go to those, I think this fits in with that. Could you talk about the people who get reward parole and how that works?
Oh yes, when after the first performance, when they got initially 5 days parole, now they go for 15 days, and during the pandemic, many of my boys were at home for 5 months. Yes, so they were all sent home because they could be trusted, and they didn't want an overcrowded jail during the pandemic. That is why they were allowed to go. But the first time, they couldn't believe that they could go home even for 5 days unescorted. And they came back. Then it became 7 days, then 10 days, then 15 days. So when they go twice a year for 15 days and they all come back, all they have to do is report to the local police station. And after the third or the fourth day, they're told that, oh, don't bother to come on the last day, but just don't do anything wrong. And so, and they've been doing this for years now, 14 years now. So, yes, it was when you see, what I keep saying is, once you enter a prison, I think anywhere in the world, you lose your dignity, your self-respect, trust, everything goes with it. But if you get it back, you'll never want to lose it again. We value everything that we lose. Sometimes we don't value most of the things that we have, but we actually value it when you lose it. Mm-hmm. You realize the worth of it. And if you get it back, you'll never want to lose it again. Mm-hmm. So that is how their mind works. So they'll never want to lose that trust, because they know that when they come out, if they can be still trusted, then they'll be able to stand on their feet, because I will help them with the rehabilitation, which I'm doing now with many of them.
And we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Trisha had a question. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, and also, Mama Roy, you look fantastic right now.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You said in the pre-record you were talking, this just jumped out, also what you just said about valuing once you lose something, the value of that intensifies. But on the talk, you talked about obstacles, seeing them as part of the journey rather than an obstacle, and how that has transformed your way. If you would talk about, yes, you, and then if you would talk on that some more.
Yes, I mean, I have been often asked about my struggles, about the obstacles. You see, I don't consider a struggle a struggle. It is just a part of one's journey. I mean, you can't have a smooth life, and if you are breaking a glass ceiling, you should expect to. I mean, you create your own obstacles, right? Because that's the package of doing something new, something unique. And being a woman, it's in a man's world. I mean, in the prison, especially, they most of them are boys. I have very few girls. And when I started it, there was a lot of hiccups, but I didn't bother. I got all the support from Mr. Sharma, B.D. Sharma, the then IG, and the minister, who I went to them and I said that, look, if I know this will be a path-breaking project for the prison, and people will look up to them, look up to you. And they agreed. And I got all the support then. But within the prison, the warders, many of them, did not like this. Probably they didn't want to see them reformed. I'm sorry to say that. I never want to talk negative, because once they are reformed, there is quite a bit of corruption. We all know about that. So supposing they are not a part of that corruption, then they lose out. But I told the then IG also, I said, Mr. Sharma, if I believe in something, I'll fight against all odds to prove it, prove that I'm right and it can happen. And it's nothing bad. What I'm trying to do, what we are all trying to do, is something positive. And if I don't believe in something, nobody can make me do it. So if I don't want the obstacles to be a part of my journey, I will remove them, because I don't believe in obstacles. And if I believe in what I'm doing, I will go ahead with it. And then obstacles they all become marble floors. You have to create that. And you just have to have the courage and the conviction that, yes, we can. I won't say I can. We can together.
Kate Kenny has a question. Would you like to unmute and ask?
Sure. Thank you so much for being here. Your talk was fascinating. This is marvelous.
Thank you.
And I was curious. You started to touch on this just a moment ago, but you spoke in the pre-record of the dancers regaining their dignity and their self-worth because of the public performances.
Yes.
And I was curious whether you think that comes from the performance itself, or because of the status of some of the people in the audience who are watching them and giving them that standing ovation, or is it a combination?
Combination. It's a combination. They feel they're worth something. All along, once they entered the prison, they felt worthless. And once they're on the stage and the audience gives them that respect of an artist, the whole outlook changes. And I think that's why I really want to go and speak about this all over the world, that all the prisoners who are performers, who are artists, they should be allowed to perform in public auditoriums, in public places, because that brings a sea change, and one thing leads to another. Once people see, I started it in Presidency Correctional Home. Now it's done all over West Bengal, but it's only in West Bengal mostly that it's happening. I don't expect it in some of the states where they're extremely cynical about crime and criminals and prisoners. They're extremely cynical. But, I don't see why it can't happen. We just have to push it. If you fail once, that doesn't mean you will not succeed the next time, but we have to keep trying. I think all of you in your country should push this and get it done. And people will see the difference. The whole society will see the difference, that how these same people can do a lot more good than many people outside. Like, I trust my boys and girls inside than many people outside, because I know they will never betray my trust, because they've got it all back. So once you get back that honor, you will hang on to it no matter what.
Indeed. Prabhu has a hand up. Would you like to unmute and ask a question?
Yes, thank you. This is Prabhu. I am from Tamil Nadu, Madurai, actually. And right now I live in Portland. And I am involved in the prison work here, like with Open Arts, Open Minds, the organization Johnny Stalling started.
Okay, Johnny Stalling. Yeah.
My question is, and I am starting to form connections in Tamil Nadu to understand the prison programs and what are the possibilities there. Yeah. And if I would like to connect with you to expand some of the programs in Tamil Nadu, how can I approach you?
Just get in touch with me. I'll give you all the details. Everybody has. Sheila has. Scott has. Kurt has. So they all have my contact. Just get in touch with me. See how one thing leads to another. Now you want to, we will be interacting together, and something will happen in Tamil Nadu. How good that feels. And in Tamil Nadu is so culturally rich. Why don't you just do that? Explore it and inject it into the system, into the prison system, and you will see the magic.
Definitely. Thank you. I will get the contacts.
Surely. I'd love that.
One of the things that you've been very successful with is working with the needs of the families while members of their family are incarcerated or after they get out. And I think it would be really wonderful for people to hear what you've been able to do with that, because it's on quite a large scale.
But as I said, one thing leads to another. When you have children, you have grandchildren. So their children have, they all call me grandma. I mean, in Bengali, it's Didun. So they call me Didun. So how can I ignore them? How can I not help them, especially the children, because they are innocent. But, they are also kind of ostracized by the society because for what their parents have done. And that makes me feel like a criminal, as a member of a society, that we need to give them that education, that confidence, so that they don't, if they are not taken care of, they will automatically go to the dark world where they're accepted. And that's how we will be breeding more criminals. So when I started with this, I think I have narrated the story about this little girl who was born in the prison, and she had no idea about what a home was. So I normally tell them stories. And one day I was in a hurry, and they love to hear the naughty stories of my childhood. I was a very naughty child. And they loved hearing those stories. So, that day I was in a hurry. I said, no, I have to go home. I can't stay. I just have to go home. People are waiting for me. She says, no, 5 minutes. I said, no, not even 5 minutes today. These children, they normally sit on my lap. okay, when I'm telling stories. And this little girl, she looked up and she asked me, Didun, what is a home? Where is a home? You know, I couldn't believe that this child didn't have a concept about what a home is. To her, it was the prison, staying with her mother till she was 6 years old. And then she would be sent away to a home or something, or if somebody can take care of her. So, I mean, this is our responsibility as citizens of the world to take care of these kids. So I started a little school for them within the prison walls, a Montessori, which is still there. Of course, I feel bad because everything is shut now. I can't even take, some snacks for them because no food is being allowed from outside in the COVID times. But they look forward to it. When I go to their office, they'll peep from one of the holes or one of the windows for where they can see me, and they'll scream, they don't, why don't you come in? Why don't you come in? I can't tell them that, they won't understand, but now they do. COVID is something even a 2-year-old understands now, that what are the restrictions during this time. So now they understand. But anyway, that is one part of the story. And I decided to take care of the boys of the boy children of these prisoners, because there are no takers for boys. Girls, it is the age of girl child which is necessary. So girls are not so naughty. So they think that boys, it's difficult to bring up boys. So nobody wants to take boys, the responsibility of boys. So I had taken responsibility of initially 11 boys. And yes, and I tried to educate them, sent them to one of the best Catholic schools, a school chain, Don Bosco. I don't know if you have it there. And the last one passed out this last year. Now what I'm trying to do is put them into some good educational institutes, because I cannot afford Don Bosco anymore. It was very, very expensive. And, I even started selling my jewelry for the productions, because you see, when I started it, as I said, I'm the most disorganized, unplanned person you can think of. So I had no plans. There was no project. There was nothing. I was just moving, right? So I can't say that nobody gave me money. I never asked for it because I didn't know how to ask for it. Firstly, I was doing it for the prisoners. Nobody would give. Nobody gave initially. And then with these children, of course, then suddenly somebody gave an amount. So that went on for 6 months. And it just came. And otherwise, I sold some of my jewelry. And what am I don't wear them. I wear all these beads and stuff. So what am I going to do with them? All Indians have a lot of jewelry, gold and all that. We love to hoard them. And they're always kept in the bank locker. We never wear, but they're there. It's there. So I also set them free. I set my jewelry free from being locked in. So they also felt perhaps that, hey, I've come into some use instead of being in a prison. So that's how I feel. I may be crazy, but that's how I feel. Then came a time when these boys were being released. The girls, somehow they just wanted to go home, get married again, or be with their families. The girls just want to be homemakers, most of them. It's very strange. They are beaten up. They are the ones who probably they're the reason why they were in jail, but they still want to go back and have a home. That's the woman instinct. I don't understand them sometimes. But what I felt was, the boys were not getting any employment when they came out. That's where I stepped in. And I just tried to give them that initial support in whatever way I could, getting some help from some friends. And most of them come from very humble background. So their needs are also very small, very little. So I could help them a little more easily if they hadn't come from that humble background. I couldn't afford too much. Now, they were gradually getting settled. Now, during this pandemic, they all lost their jobs. They had, one was driving an Uber, one was driving one of those scooties, and there was no work. They were starving. So again, you know how when you do something from here sincerely, help comes. So one of my son's friend, who's a tea auctioneer in it's a huge firm, very, very old one. He offered to give 100 kilos of tea to me for these boys. So now 5 of them come every month, they collect the tea, and they're selling that tea. And tea is something, in Bengal, everybody drinks tea. So they're doing that. And with that money, now they're buying more tea. And they're running a small tea entrepreneurship. One has a tea stall. So he of course uses it there. So, there is so much to do. And the other thing which I'm doing now, which I have to talk about, of course, again, it's stalled for the time being. I don't know when they will reopen, is working with the juvenile offenders. That's the most sensitive zone. They are full of energy. And because juvenile justice is more liberal, they usually don't get convicted. And they are really, they are easily released. But the problem is not there. The problem is the rejection from the society. Again, these young boys, they are not taken back in school most of the time. So they're school dropouts. The parents are always pointing a finger at them. Again, most of them are from humble backgrounds. And the friends don't mix around with them anymore. So what do? They go back to the person who's going to use them, and they make quick money, and they go back to the observatory homes. So the repeat offenders are mostly amongst adolescents, the juveniles. So that is what I'm doing now. I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the older boys, but I cannot show their faces. So I'm going to do productions like The Jungle Book, where they're masked. Things like that, where I don't have to show their faces, but they can still do a public performance. And once they feel that they're being appreciated, they're never appreciated. Everybody pulls them up. Everybody ostracizes them, even when they're out. They will feel that self-worth again. And what I'm trying to do now is give them that education, so that they have the minimum education, a school leaving certificate. I'm going to coach them. I'm going to give them vocational training and skill development, so that they can stand on their own feet and never have to go back to the dark world, because their mind is full of ideas, and they're full of energy. All I'm trying to do is channelize that energy in the right way, in the positive way. That's all I'm going to do.
So there's a question from a fellow named Kurt Toftlin. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I don't know him. Do I know him?
I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to unmute himself and ask his question. And we can mute him again quickly if there's any problem. And then after that,
my
Johnny
daddy.
has a question. But Kurt, you've got the floor.
Yeah, my daddy.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you with us, Mama Roy. I have a question.
Yeah.
And it might seem frivolous, but I had the opportunity, Michelle and I had the opportunity when we were in Kolkata to go to Mother Teresa's orphanage. And so I don't know much about Mother Teresa other than what's written about her. And some negative stuff has come out, and who knows what's true in the media. My question is did you ever have an opportunity to meet her? And if you did, and if you wish to share, how was that meeting?
I have met her only once on the plane. I was in the same aircraft while traveling to Delhi. So when I knew she was there, I went up to her. I touched her feet like we do, in India. I touched her feet. She blessed me. And we didn't exchange. We didn't really have a conversation. So I came back to my seat. And I still remember while we were leaving the aircraft, she told the air hostesses and the steward that please pack all the extra food for me. So whatever was left. So she took all the leftover food because she says, I need them. This is something that I remember. And this must have been about 35 years back. But I still remember that. And I felt that how little things can save so many hungry people. Just the leftover food from the aircraft. And nobody ever thought of it. She did. I have not met her after that. No.
Yeah. Thank you. And Johnny had a question. Would you like to unmute and ask?
Hi, it's good to see you.
Hi, Johnny. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Yeah, lovely to see you. And it's implied in a lot of what you've talked about, but I'm wondering if you would say something about the role of love in your prison work.
I when I first went, I didn't think that I was going to get so emotionally involved with these people. I went there to do maybe a 2 or 3 months workshop because I didn't think I would be allowed beyond that. So I was working accordingly. But gradually, this bonding happened. And it was not a conscious effort. It just evolved. And I remember I did speak about 2 or 3 incidents before also, I think, that I didn't know that, I didn't ever think that nobody touches them. They were like untouchables. Like in America, you're not supposed to touch them, but there are no such restrictions there. So like one boy who fell ill during it's very hot and we practice under a tin shed. So it's really, really hot and he fell sick. So I said, just get some water. He had a bit of a blackout. So I took him on my lap. I sat on the floor and I put his head on my lap and I put water on his head and I was stroking him. And gradually he came out of the blackout and he kept staring at me. So I said, are you feeling better? He nodded his head. And he still kept staring at me. I said, do you want to say something? He says, no. So the next day, after 2 days, when I went back, he wrote in a piece of paper, like the girls would hug and cry and talk. Boys don't. Boys are not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to express their emotions. So he wrote on a chit of paper that I've been here so long, I don't remember my mother so well. But now when I shut my eyes and think of my mother, I see your face. I did nothing. I just put water on his head. So I just called him and I gave him a tight hug. And then he told me, this is the first time somebody has touched me after 15 years. It was a shocking experience for me. It was a revelation for me. And, with that touch, the connection grew. Now, when they're naughty, I give them 1 or 2 whacks on their back. But the one who gets that whack will get a hug the next day. And they know that. And I'll tell you about, I don't know if I have narrated this story, that why I have decided to work mainly with boys is, like I said, that they don't express their feelings or emotions easily because they are men and they are not supposed to. What happened was, when I had a bit of a reservation, I'll be very honest, about rapists. I somehow I had difficulty accepting them initially. Now all that's gone. Now, some of them knew, especially the ones who work in the office of the prison, they knew. And I was auditioning some boys from another jail, and they were all standing in front of me when suddenly one of the boys behind me said, "Ma, that's a rape case," meaning that I shouldn't be taking him, that I wouldn't want to take him. So I said, all right, I will talk to him. I was feeling bad because he was standing right in front of me, and I really felt bad. So I said, you all go from here. I'll talk to him. So I said, did you hear what he said about you? He nodded. So I said, is it true? He nodded again. I said, why do you do it? Cowards do things like this. Don't you feel bad afterwards? Don't you despise yourself? He just kept quiet. And then he said that, Ma, can I ask you a question? I said, of course you can. So he said, will you come aside? So he took me to one corner and he said, you're a mother to everybody here. I just want to ask you one question. Did anybody ever ask me when I was small? I mean, what was done to me when I was small? I said, would you like to tell me? He says, no, I can't tell you. I understood. That's no excuse for what he has done. That's no excuse. But, when you cannot express at that small age on the kind of molestation that happens even to a boy, it can sometimes come out in the most negative way. And then I started researching, and I realized that as many boys are trafficked, as many as girls, we don't know about that. And they are used for the same reasons, like the trafficked boys are used for drug peddling, for using them for murder, theft, dacoity, all that is there, and flesh trade. But we are, even I didn't know so much. So I decided that let me speak for young boys and let me understand their feelings so that we don't have more criminals in society in future. Because it's up to us. If we don't protect our little boys, if we don't educate them, if we don't love them, if we don't understand them, we will not be able to protect our little girls either. So it's both ways. It's both ways. I think we have a responsibility towards humanity, whether it's boy or a girl. So even when all this International Women's Day celebration happens, I said, let there be a day when we will only celebrate an International Humanity Day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mama Roy.
Thank
This
you.
has been
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
One of the things that will not surprise anybody here, but when I was giving talks at a lot of colleges around India when I was there, and most of the students and most of the faculty had no idea that there were such programs in prisons. This was a new concept to them. What was not new to them was Mama Roy. So every time when I was giving one of these talks and I said that I had gone and visited her and seen a performance with her boys, every single face would light up with a smile. Oh, we know her. And I don't think that anybody who is here with us today will be surprised at all.
I've been around so long. I'm a dinosaur.
Oh,
so that's
yes.
why people know me.
Not at all. But Scott, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Oh, Mama Roy, thank you so much for being
I hate saying goodbye to you all. I could go on and on and on, but yes, we have to finish somewhere.
It's been wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for, allowing me to share the stories of my children, my grandchildren, and of course, my transformation, the story of my transformation through them. Thank you so much.